As of March 6, 2025, trade tensions between the United States and Canada have escalated sharply, driven by controversial American trade policies under President Donald Trump. On March 4th, Trump imposed a sweeping 25% tariff on Canadian imports and an additional 10% on Canadian energy exports, like oil and natural gas. The justification offered was to pressure Canada into tougher measures against the flow of fentanyl into the U.S. However, data from U.S. Customs and Border Protection reveals that only 0.2% of fentanyl entering the U.S. originates from Canada, with the majority flowing through Mexico and China. This highlights a significant flaw in Trump's reasoning, as Canada plays a minimal role in fentanyl trafficking. In immediate response, Canada announced retaliatory tariffs of 25% on $30 billion worth of U.S. goods, with the intent to increase tariffs by another $125 billion if the U.S. does not reverse its actions. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau described the U.S. tariffs as unjustified, noting Canada's plans to bring the issue before the World Trade Organization, initiating the dispute resolution process. Ontario, significantly impacted by these tariffs due to its role as Canada's industrial heartland, has taken aggressive countermeasures. Ontario Premier Doug Ford announced the province would impose a 25% tariff on electricity exports to American states such as Michigan, New York, and Minnesota, starting March 10, 2025. These states heavily depend on Ontario for electricity, impacting millions of American homes and industries. Premier Ford has escalated his stance further, threatening to halt electricity exports entirely if U.S. tariffs persist. Ford's administration also plans additional economic countermeasures, including canceling a $100 million contract with Elon Musk's Starlink internet company and removing American alcohol from Ontario's government-controlled liquor stores. This bold stance reflects Ontario's determination to defend its economy from significant harm due to American trade policies. Critics of Trump's policies argue that his rationale is deeply flawed, citing that less than 1% of fentanyl trafficked into the U.S. comes from Canada. Most originates from Mexico and China. Experts and analysts highlight these inaccuracies, labeling the U.S. tariffs as economically damaging and politically motivated rather than based on genuine security threats. The economic consequences of these tariffs are severe. Ontario, Canada's industrial powerhouse, faces significant job losses, higher costs in manufacturing sectors like auto production, steel, and retail, as well as potential disruptions to daily life. Anticipating the economic shock, the Ontario government has earmarked over $40 billion in relief efforts, including payroll subsidies, tax relief measures, and municipal funding to support businesses and protect employment. Canada is proactively reducing its heavy reliance on U.S. trade by aggressively diversifying export markets, especially for energy products. Alberta has accelerated energy exports to Asian markets, notably China and Japan. With the recent completion of the Trans Mountain Expansion Pipeline, Canadian crude oil shipments to China surged five-fold, totaling $2 billion in 2024 alone. Japanese and Southeast Asian markets have also begun receiving significant Canadian crude oil and natural gas exports, marking a substantial strategic pivot from traditional dependence on the U.S. Domestically, Canadian politicians are rallying public support to minimize dependency on American products. Ontario is considering further aggressive measures, such as imposing additional surcharges on energy exports and eliminating U.S.-made products like alcohol from retail shelves. Prominent figures like Member of Parliament Charlie Angus have even urged Canadians to boycott American goods and support local businesses, reinforcing economic nationalism amid escalating tensions. While the U.S. administration argues its tariffs are essential to protect national security and economic interests, the reality reflects a flawed strategy causing mutual economic harm weakened diplomatic relations, and undermining the historical partnership. Canada's decisive retaliatory measures illustrate a clear strategy to assert sovereignty and mitigate the impacts of unilateral American trade actions. Both nations are now locked in economic brinkmanship, revealing vulnerabilities in America's America First policy, which critics argue prioritizes short-term politics over long-term economic stability.